Good evening to all you wisdom walkers out there. This is Jojopahmaria Nsoroma, and I am so delighted to welcome you to my YouTube live broadcast. In about another 2 minutes, I'll be folding in my radio broadcast, which I have on the line right now as my intro music is playing. I'll turn that down a little bit. I have a really neat show planned for you this evening as I continue this journey through truthful transformation. And I think it's such an important topic for the times that we are living in. It seems like we're on this planet really being asked to grow ourselves up to a next level of maturity. And that focus is really on our emotional maturity. And so truthful transformation really becomes a way for us to embrace um, the truth in all its forms, and to really be able to, ultimately this is about living a life of fulfillment, being on purpose, living through a purpose, so that we know we matter. We know that we are really here to make a difference. And that difference is to be one of love, not fear. So I'm just delighted to be able to talk about these four aspects it comes to of truthful transformation. And as I'll repeat again for the radio broadcast, I tonight will be focusing on vulnerability, one of my favorite things to talk about. And of course, vulnerability I'm associating with St. Valentine's Day, and so that means I'm associating it with love, the pure love of the universe. And again, I always love talking about love. It's one of my favorite things to do. So we have a lot of astronomical activity this week, which I'll talk about more. We've got a full moon on Tuesday. Tomorrow we have the planet, it's called, although the astronomers don't really call it that, but the astrologers do consider it a body, a heavenly body. Chiron is moving into the sign of Aries, moving out of Pisces. And anytime Chiron is transiting, there is going to be some stuff coming up. And I've had some stuff this week, I can tell you. So there's also some stuff with Venus and just a lot of stuff going on. I'm not going to get into all of it, but I will definitely give you the highlights or the two things I think are important to focus on. And again, this information is important because we are to master ourselves and take responsibility for our behaviors, our thoughts, our feelings. So when you know that there is energetic transformations going on, you can understand then why you might be a little angry or anything like that going on, and it'll make sense to you. So I am just really, really grateful that we can have this added information going on for us. So now I'm listening, and my theme song is playing one more time. So I get to keep talking to you, which I will. Um, Aside from the astronomical things that are going on, there's also the elemental energies, which I share about every week. And that's just another really important way, I think, to stay conscious about what may be showing up. I think it's very easy for us as humans to fall into victim consciousness, to really feel like um, somebody or something is out to get us, or um, it also falls into our feelings of unworthiness. So if something doesn't turn out the way we think it should, we right away can feel like, oh, nothing ever turns out right for me. And we don't want to stay in those places. They're not very healthy. They're not very productive, if you will, and they don't bring good results. So when you can understand that there are challenges that are going to be showing up for you this week, then if you're expecting that or you're aware of that, I think we're more able to respond to them. Um, or if we do react, we know that we can make a choice to respond to them out of love rather than fear. And so those weekly energetic forecasts that I give you from the Dagger Medicine Wheel are really designed to do that. Um, and we have a mineral week coming up this week. We're in a mineral year. So there's going to be a lot of, yeah, there's going to be a lot of remembering purpose or being made aware that you're not on purpose, you're not in purpose. Um, so there could be some challenges that show up for us. But again, it's all designed to keep us growing into the best version of ourselves and into the truth of who we really are. And so it's all in alignment with truthful transformation, which I'm going to be talking about more in a very few seconds because my theme music on the radio is just about to stop. And I'll do my official hello to you um, once the music stops. Should be happening any second now. Let me take a look here. Also, too, when you see my eyes going down, it's just because I'm reading. I keep my cheat sheet um, right on the top of my computer here so that I can see. And it's just a way for me not to um, go much longer than is needed, but also to just remind myself to stay focused. It's very easy for me to go off on tangents or to get caught into a deep channel when I'm doing this work. And so these notes kind of help guide me along so that I stay focused. So now we can begin with the broadcast. Good evening and welcome to Wisdom Walk here on Black Hole Radio and YouTube Live. I am your host and guide, Jojopahmaria Nsoroma. February is the first of 3 fire months, and fire is all about transformation. We're also in a mineral year, and so the theme that I have proclaimed this year for us is clarity, confidence, and courage. Now, this month, because it's so full of transformation, I decided to do my broadcast on the theme of truthful transformation. And I stress truthful because we can transform into some really ugly stuff. Like if our heart's been broken, we could really turn into very, very raging, angry, or even to kind of just disappear um, and be very, very pitiful in the world. So that's not the kind of transformation I'm talking about. I'm talking about transforming into the truth of who we really are. And so, because February is so full of some really, big cultural events, I thought it would be really fun to align these aspects of truthful transformation with the events that happen this month. And so I've used Groundhog Day for talking about accountability. Last week I used the Chinese New Year to talk about time framing, the importance of really framing and understanding about our use of time and how important that is. And tonight I'm going to be talking about vulnerability as it relates to Valentine's Day. And then next week I'll complete this by talking about audacity as it relates to Black History Month. So, for those of you who may be listening in for the first time, let me give you a brief overview of what Wisdom Walk is about. This is a personal development resource for your mind, body, and soul. My ministry is any pain that is not transformed will be transferred. So, the essential goal of my shows is to support listeners and watchers in learning how to recognize and release any pain that may be blocking you from fulfillment in life, or what I like to call having your happy endings in life. Every Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time, I broadcast live here on Black Hole Radio and YouTube Live, unless I'm on hiatus. And if for some reason you can't access the internet to watch or listen to the show, you may listen to the live broadcasts on the radio through the phone line. And here's the number, it's area code 563-999-3089. Again, that's 563-999-3089. I also provide a web link for the radio broadcast through my Facebook page, and you may also get it through a constant contact email. And by the way, I've also included now the link and the little picture so that it's easier for people to access the YouTube also through my constant contact email. Um, So for whatever reason, if you can't watch this all the way through or listen all the way through, know that the archive link and of course YouTube, those this broadcast will always be available to you for as long as they keep that stuff up in the cloud. Now, I invite you to just relax, sit or lay back and join me for this exploration of the inner landscape where you can connect to your soul and open up to discover the true treasure of being human. Now, for those of you who've listened in before, you know that I always like to start off my program by honoring the ancestors. These are the people whose shoulders we're standing upon. These are the people for whom we are beholden because if they hadn't gone through what they went through and did the things they did, we just wouldn't be here. We really would not exist. So we honor that. We honor that part of them. But I also like to honor these aspects of what I talk about in my show. And so tonight, I'm talking about vulnerability, and I want to honor the ancestors who were able to share their vulnerability with us. And I want to share with you just a quick little story about my grandfather. I was very, very blessed to have my grandfather because I did not grow up with my father. And my grandfather was the kind of man that was really like the head of the family, meaning that people really regarded him and had a lot of respect for him. And he was, you know, very kind. I heard when he was young, he used to cut up a little bit, but as he matured, he was just very kind and loving, a great neighbor. People used to knock on our door all the time and say, Mr. Brown, can you help me fix this table? Or Mr. Brown, can you help me with my car? He only had a fifth grade education. I don't even know if he had that much, but the family story was that he dropped out of school in the fifth grade to work, go to work, but he just was a master at fixing anything. Like he could take something broken and he would just figure out how it worked. Or he could have easily been an engineer because he would take watches apart and just learn how it functions, how it works, and put it back together. So he could fix a lot of things. So again, he was that kind of a person. He was well respected, well guarded, well regarded, and I just loved him, and he showered a lot of attention on me. He loved books, and I love books, and I learned to love old books from him because he would go to old bookstores and teach me, that these are good books. They may be old and their covers are a little worn, but what's in between these covers is really good stuff. Um, so anyway, so you can imagine. So this is my hero. This man was my hero. This is my God in terms of men. I really looked up to him. And as he aged, there was a point where he had to travel from New York down to Florida because his brother had died. And he never had a lot of money. He never had a lot of money, but he made a way. It's amazing. And so it was kind of like a relay. He drove down to Wilmington, and with my uncle, the two of them were driving down in his car. So they didn't have to come up with a plane fare or a train fare or a bus fare. They drove down. So what happened is they drove back up and got as far as Wilmington, and my grandfather was really, 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 really tired. Too tired to drive, and it was going to be just another 2 hours, but he was like really, really tired. So what ends up happening, and they had called, I think yeah, they had called before they were getting to Wilmington, but just to say that, dad, my uncle said, Daddy's really tired. He's not going to be able to make it. And I had learned to drive probably just about maybe a year before. Um, and so I was like, oh, I got to go down to Wilmington and drive my grandfather home. And so I got on a train and I went down there, met up with them. But I'll never forget driving in driving him in that car. And he was just so tired. And of course, he was grieving. This is like, his brother, um, one of the few remaining members of his family. And now he was gone. And I can remember, just feeling his vulnerability, feeling that he was grieving, feeling he was so tired. And also, too, that he needed me. He needed me to drive him. And this was a person that driven me, as a kid. This is a person I learned to drive from, from watching him. And so it was really just a wonderful, wonderful experience for me to gain confidence, courage, clarity, all those C's I talk about by my grandfather sharing his vulnerability with me and allowing me to drive him. So I share that story with you, hoping it will trigger in you a memory of either when an adult shared their vulnerability with you or somebody that you love that's no longer here shared their vulnerability with you, that you got to see a side of them, of their humanity, and that it made a difference for you. So I'm going to call out to these ancestors. And of course, I asked you to speak their name out loud. My grandfather's full name was Frank Brown, Frank Sicer Brown. And I encourage you to say their name out loud and just honor them, those that were able to demonstrate and share their vulnerability with you. So, ancestors, 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 we are calling out to you, those of you who were able to demonstrate and share your vulnerability with us, for truly in your ability to be soft and open, and you were giving us the opportunity to experience our strength, to experience our courage, to get clear about the fact that we too can be of service. I am so grateful to my grandfather and to all the ancestors that were able to show me and share with me that vulnerability has a power to it. And so, ancestors, I ask and thank you for continuing to show us about the importance of vulnerability, that we don't have to stay in this belief that we've got to be perfect all the time, otherwise we're doing something wrong, but to really trust that in those times when we are in need, that we can open up to receiving the help we need, knowing that we are helping someone else be in their courage and be in their strength. So thank you, thank you, thank you for, as the days come and we are more and more challenged, we thank you for showing up and helping us remember the importance and the power of vulnerability. And Creator, I ask you and thank you for these great emissaries, the ancestors, and for all that you give them to do for us, for all that they do for us. And I thank you for these blessings in the name of all that is holy. I say Amen, Ashe Aho Asa, Shinga Bismillah, so it is. All righty. Let's do some elemental wisdom because we are coming up on a mineral week in a mineral year, which is always, always very interesting energy. Um, the week starts on a Tuesday because that was the first day of January 1st this year. And so the message for the Mineral Week is all about connecting with the souls of others. And I'm going to tell you, especially those souls that are getting on our last nerve, or people that are irritating to you, upsetting to you, whatever. Um, it's about seeing through to who they really are, seeing through to their vulnerability that they maybe are masking by, being shut down or being irritable, whatever's going on. But when I say connect to the souls of others, it's not just about the people who are so easy to connect to their souls, but the people where you find it hardest, because clearly when you can connect to somebody's soul, you don't have to take on their pain. You can see their pain and understand why they're doing or being what they are. In this message, it goes on to say that unity consciousness is what makes us human. So, communicate at a deeper level. We have the ability for compassion, understanding, forgiveness, and fourth dimensional relationships. A huge part of living on purpose is to be willing to transcend the shallow surface of what a person presents to you. See into their hearts and connect with their essence. In this way, you must be deep and simple with your own self and connected to your own soul. This is what the Age of Illumination is all about. Use the healing energy of minerals, and that includes stones, bones, crystals, and shells, to illuminate your higher self and that of others. Yeah. And so, especially with those folks who are irritable to us or disruptive, or, that we really wish we could just get rid of them. um, it's really about the forgiveness piece, because forgiveness isn't letting somebody off the hook for something they may have done to you or said to you. It really is about you saying no to taking on their pain. It's also about you accepting that clearly they are in pain, and that you don't have to be in pain as well. You can let it go. You let it go. Um, so here's some of the distractions that can show up in a mineral week where the focus is on connecting to someone's soul. These are the things that'll keep you from connecting to somebody's soul and your own. First, it's feeling sorry for people and taking on their pain. That's called codependency. That ain't soul connection. False obligations because you forget you are worthy. So, again, thinking that you've got to do something or say something or be something because of what somebody had done for you or who they are, whatever. If it's not supposed to be, leave it alone. Leave it alone. That's not soul connection. That's doing things out of obligation. Victim consciousness, of course, if you're feeling victimized, there's no way you're connected to your soul. And there's no way you could connect to someone else's soul. Anxiety and impatience. Yeah. Big blocks to soul connection, to getting clear about, oh, that's that person's pain, and this is my pain, and I don't need to take on their pain. And last but not least, gossip, judgments, and blaming definitely will shut you down to trying to be soul connected to yourself, first of all, and especially to other people. Excuse me. So, next week, on February the 26th, Tuesday, we will begin a water week. And I will tell you about that in the next broadcast. Now, moving right into the astrological forecast, this Tuesday, as I had mentioned earlier in my YouTube live stream, we are going to have a full moon, and it will be at about 8, no, it'll be about 7:53 a.m. in the morning Pacific time, so then you can calculate it, from there. Um, I got this information from Lena Stevens, whose website is called The Power Path. And Lena writes that this full moon activates our intuition and emotional side at the same time as inviting us to take more responsibility for organizing the details connected to our intentions. So it's like, it's good to have the dream, but you also got to get take care of the details. But then she also goes in to say that creativity and inspiration are key words for this full moon, and we need to give our imagination some room to play and dream. So she says, be mindful of you need to do the details, but put off the organization of the details to remind yourself that life is not all seriousness and growth. There needs to be time for the inner child to express through creativity without any attachment to a specific goal. So I think she's basically saying there, we've got to be able to balance the time that you put into, your creativity, the development of your dream, you're getting your vision together, and how you then take that and give it legs or open up to those legs showing up. She then goes on to say the needs for expansion, adventure, and expression are alive and well and should be acknowledged as allies during this time. Any resistance you have to a little chaos should be let go on an exhale. Had a little bit of that today. So take a breath, do something fun. I took a walk. Give your creativity an outlet and share your gratitude and inspiration with others. With that said, she goes on, it is also good to make a plan for organizing the details and giving some structure to what comes from imagination, inspiration, and creativity. Very, very nice. So, creativity, full moon, launching something, reaping some harvest, something new, will be very, very, always very wonderful. Now, the other big astrological, astronomical news is about Chiron moving into the sign of Aries out of Pisces. I I don't know how long it's been in Pisces, but I'm a Piscean and it's been a time. And I think it might have been since 2014. I'm not sure, but it was around either 2010 or 2014, something like that. It's been a minute. And Chiron is considered the wounded healer. Chiron is the constellation that is the centaur with the bow and arrow, and he's half man and half beast. And real quickly, the story of Chiron is that he was born to Apollo and to no, maybe not Apollo. I don't think it was born to Apollo. It's probably Zeus. It's probably born to like Zeus and one of the nymphs, many nymphs that he would be with and make children with. Anyway, his mama didn't want him when he came out because she's like, "Oh my God, this is ugly. This is bad." It's like almost Rosemary's Baby. So she gets rid of him, but he gets raised by the god Apollo. And Apollo is considered the Roman god that brings up the sun. And Apollo also is about music and culture and art and all this good stuff. So he teaches Chiron all of that stuff, and Chiron is all knowledgeable about that. He's probably a mineral person because it also says that he knew had a lot of knowledge. And one of the things that Chiron could do is heal people. He was a healer. But although so many people that he could heal, he couldn't heal himself. And of course, he was neglected and rejected by his mama. That's his core wound. It's a big mama drama. So, as the story goes, Chiron ends up being the one who frees up the god Prometheus, and Prometheus is considered the god who brought fire to humans. And so, he got into trouble for that. But in getting in trouble, they tell him, "Well, look, you've been suffering so much, we're just going to kill you off." And but when they kill him off, he becomes immortal, and so that's how he gets his constellation up in the sky. And so Chiron then is considered the wounded healer, and the energetics about him is that he comes to energetically help us take on healing our wounds, especially those core wounds. So, with him moving into Aries, this is a transit going on, and that'll be on tomorrow, be on the 18th. So, for those of you who are really sensitive, if you've been feeling like out of sorts and kind of things up and down, or physically you're not feeling too good, emotionally you might be weepy, just ready to cry, or just things aren't working out. You might have gotten some disappointments or some threats, whatever. Um, that's all that Chiron transit going on because that all of that pushes up, core wound stuff. Um, so Chiron moving in through Aries now on the 18th, it's considered one of the most anticipated transits of the year. Chiron's going to be in the sign of Aries until 2027. That's a long time. So if you're born in the sign of Aries, know that you got some good core wound healing stuff coming up. How wonderful. I know it's going to be crazy, but it's still wonderful. Um, but for all of us, the big message is that our our deepest wound can turn into our greatest gift. Now, I love that because I talk a lot about the treasure in trauma and how we have to get the gift from our wound. We have to find the gold, mine the gold. And so I think it's wonderful to know that there's actually an astrological energy that is going to be supporting us through to 2027. Isn't that something? Over these next 8 years to really get that, to get the treasure in our wound, which means that more people are going to be waking up out of victim consciousness and moving into victor consciousness. There are going to be more happy endings coming real, coming true, more fulfillment showing up in people's lives. And that's a really important thing to be happening. So, just make note of that. And again, you can Google, Chiron into Aries. You'll get a lot of good information on it. But I think it's an important transition for us to just be aware of, to be conscious of, and note, you know, for us individually as well as collectively, what core wounds are being pushed up and out so that we can see them, accept them, and transform that pain. Moving right along, I want to give you a quick overview of what I will continue talking about tonight, which is truthful transformation. And I will review the aspects of accountability and time framing before I go into vulnerability and its relationship to St. Valentine's Day. And then I will conclude with a personal challenge. Now, my opening quote was from Brene Brown. I consider Brene Brown the oracle or the guru of vulnerability. She is a research professor from the University of Texas who did a TED Talk that went viral because of her sharing this research she did about the importance of vulnerability, that it is not about weakness, it really is about strength. And so she's written several books because she got on Oprah's show, and she's been doing very well as an author um, and research. She continues being a researcher, but she's done very well as an author. Books that are accessible and easy to read. You wouldn't think she was a researcher. It's plain talking books, and I highly recommend this one called The Power of Vulnerability. So here's the quote. She says, "To love someone fiercely, to believe in something with your whole heart, to celebrate a fleeting moment in time, to fully engage in a life that doesn't come with guarantees. These are risks that involve vulnerability and often pain. But I'm learning that recognizing and leaning into the discomfort of vulnerability teaches us how to live with joy, gratitude, and grace." Yes, yes, yes. How wonderful that is. How wonderful. So eloquently she puts it, because I wholeheartedly believe in everything she just said. So let me jump back to truthful transformation. Okay. And as I said a little before, it's about truthful transformation, not untruthful transformation. It's not about imitating somebody's journey. It's not about um, becoming something that you're not, even though you think that's who you should be. No, this is really about becoming your full, true self in accordance with your sacred contract and the promises that you made, what it is that you are here to do, what your purpose is. It is an awareness, truthful transformation, that what you do or don't do really matters, that it affects everyone around you. So when you're not being truthful with yourself or with others about who you are, there really is much blockage that is going on. And you will experience that in your life, how your life is feeling, how it rolls out. So truthful transformation, I broke it into four aspects, four things that we can be working on in order to achieve it, in order to experience it, even. And the first one I talked about was accountability. And I use the movie Groundhog Day to illustrate that because I think it does it so wonderfully. In the beginning of the film, we meet a person who really isn't taking account and taking and being responsible for his life. He's definitely feeling like a victim. He's got some chronic depression going on because he's just always angry and upset and criticizing and judging and blaming. He's not at peace with himself. He doesn't like himself. And through the course of the movie, when he gets stuck in Groundhog Day, February the 2nd, over and over and over and over again, we see him at first reject it. We then see him accept it, but think, oh, I can transform into whatever I want and I can do whatever I want, and has enough of consequences, get enough smackdown over and over again that finally he is open and through the power of love to use his time to take account, to become responsible for his life. And so he takes on learning new things, things that he's interested in, like ice carving and playing the piano, becoming a chiropractic. And so through the course of the movie, we get to see this trajectory of, how he moves from, no accountability to being very accountable. And in that process, what the story teaches us is that he's able to get fulfilled in his life and in love. He learns to like himself and he shares the truth of who he is with everyone around him. And it becomes a wonderful, wonderful contributing member of a community that he adopts. And of course, it's done with a lot of humor. I can't imagine anybody's not seen that movie, but it's done with a lot of humor. It's done really well. And again, it's just that really wonderful message about accountability. So when we're able to take account of what's not working for us and take on shifting that to become accountable for how we are keeping ourselves miserable, how we are blocking our happy endings in life, then we see truthful transformation. Truthful transformation will come from that. Now, last week I jumped into time framing and I did a whole spiel about the Chinese New Year and what its history was and why it is, and also about this wonderful, very complex math associated with the animal zodiac that is used to describe the energetic for each year. And so there are 12 of the animal signs. And even with those signs, there are these elemental energies, and they celebrate four energies of the medicine wheel. And they overlay that also onto each of the animals. So, like this year, we are celebrating an earth pig, the earth pig. And the earth pig is basically about um, really having a lot of prosperity show up because it's like you're grounded and you are now reaping the rewards. You're reaping it. You can lay back and kind of enjoy, the fruits of your labor. So the Chinese consider it a year of wealth and prosperity, and especially because it's associated with earth. The earth energy is kind of like the energy again, it's that grounding. It's like it's a time in between summer and the fall, and so it is like this kind of the harvesting and pulling things together and just kind of being able to take a breath, and it's like this is so wonderful. So that all of that information I presented to really help us get and understanding about the conscious use of the time that we have to live our purpose and to keep our promises. What I love about the Chinese calendar is that it does things in a 60-year cycle. 60-year cycles, really 12. There's 12-year cycles, but you add them together, five of them, and you will get through every animal and every elemental energy over a 60-year period. I think that's important because we live in a culture where we really don't value aging. We see aging as something you're not supposed to do. And there are businesses and industries that are very, very, very successful, helping people not age in terms of their looks, in terms of their sight, in terms of their hearing. I mean, you name it, you'll find something where somebody will say to you, "Oh yeah, you don't have to not, you can't, you don't have to age. Here, I got something for you." And I think what that does is it has us be in fear of getting older and not understanding the benefit of going around that wheel, through those five cycles and coming out at the age of 60 as a wise elder. Now, not everybody who's 60 is a wise elder because that really is about your belief system and your consciousness. And if you've gone through those five cycles unconsciously, meaning you haven't been learning lessons, you haven't been paying attention, you haven't been allowing life to teach you how the universe works, then you can be 60 and you can be miserable. Or you can be 60 and say, wow, I made it through. I am ready. I'm ready for this next journey of my life because I get it now. I understand the purpose of a broken heart. I don't have to be afraid of that ever again. Um, and so I talked about how, in the Chinese astrology, it just gives us a way in Western culture where we don't characterize the years with this is a purpose or an energy. We just go from year to year and proclaim some New Year's resolutions that are very hard to keep. Um, but I love this kind of coloring and it puts a focus on the time that we have. And so knowing that like this year is one about prosperity, then that means the time I have this year, I can focus on the experience of that. And I can also look for what would block that. Because again, this year, this time frame is supposed to be, I'm supposed to have some prosperity here. So if I'm not experiencing that, I can say, okay, let me take on addressing what is blocking my experience of prosperity because this is a time for it. So that's what I mean by time framing. It's a conscious and wise use of our time. And it's almost like, it's in accordance with, what Esther Hicks talks about in terms of manifesting, ask and you shall receive, because it really is about putting a focus on something and allowing that focus to help you make decisions about what you do and don't do and how you do it and when you do it. So it's almost like being more present to your life too, I think, not just drifting, not just thinking things are happening for no reason, but it really helps you pay more attention. And the personal challenge I gave last week was to identify what part of the 60-year cycle you're in, according to the Chinese calendar. And that's very easy to look up. It's Google it, it's online. And then I asked, what about your birth animal and your seasonal element resonates with you and why? And what would you like to shift about your life? And what is your time frame for making that shift? So now tonight we come to Valentine's Day. Let me give you some of the history about Valentine's Day because it goes back to the Roman celebration of the feast of Lupercalia. Now, I'm pretty sure there was some other something that this came out of, so don't think this is the real origins, because human beings have been doing stuff since they could stand up and walk and talk. But probably this one that I found in Wikipedia marks when it was kind of, what we call coming more into, you know, modern society. And so it was on February the 13th and 15th, according to the Roman calendar, that this feast of Lupercalia was celebrated. Now, here's what it was: men sacrificed a goat and a dog, okay? Then whipped women with the hides of these animals that they had just slain. Women believed that this would make them fertile. And then there was a lottery held, and the men and the women were matched up together to get the woman pregnant. So basically, this is like a fertility rites festival that was going on because they wanted to make sure they had enough children to work out in the fields. That's the main reason for why they were doing that. So St. Valentine's Day has a very bloody origins. So how did it get to, like me, when I was in kindergarten, we would bring in these Valentine cards and exchange them with our classmates. How did we get to that? Well, in the late medieval times in the 14th century, um, romantic love gets associated with Valentine's Day, um, because of this notion of what they called courtly love, and it was flourishing in the 14th century begins, because they're coming out of the dark ages, right? So love is flourishing, and courtly love, meaning that, there's a whole practices and traditions and do's and don't do's, the whole courtship scene begins to come about. And it says that in the 18th century England, so 400 years later, it grew into an occasion in which couples express their love for each other by presenting flowers, offering confectionaries, those are sweets, and sending greeting cards known as Valentines. Valentine Day symbols that are used today include the heart-shaped outline, doves, and the figure of the winged Cupid. Since the 19th century, handwritten valentines have given way to mass-produced greeting cards thanks to Hallmark. It says in Europe, St. Valentine's keys are given to lovers as romantic symbols and an invitation to unlock the giver's heart, as well as to ward off epilepsy. That was called the St. Valentine's Day malady. Um, so very interesting. So that's how we get to what we normally think of Valentine's Day. But I want to open Valentine's Day up to be something a little holier than just chocolates and greeting cards and restaurant at an expensive restaurant. I mean, dinner at an expensive restaurant. I really think that Valentine's Day can be and should be an opportunity for us to express and share our vulnerability. And in fact, when I was in elementary school and we would do those Valentine Day cards and the little Valentine Day candies, that's really what we were doing, you know? You were taking a risk to tell this person that you love them, that you like them, give them a Valentine's Day card. And there was no guarantee you were going to get one back or that they'd be happy that you gave it. There was this risk involved. And I think that's a very healthy thing for children to be learning, that in life, in relationships especially, you got to take a risk. You got to take a risk. And like Brene Brown said, opening yourself to heartache, it's very painful, but it's the only way you'll ever get to beauty and joy and love and fulfillment. If you shy away from it, if you run away from it, you will never get the opportunity to know whether or not the love that you offer can be returned. A little bit more about vulnerability because clearly there is a belief in our culture that being vulnerable is not something that you should do. I remember there was this deodorant commercial called for one of the deodorants, maybe it was Dove or somebody like that, but the tagline was "Never let them see you sweat." And it was this whole thing about I cannot be vulnerable in my workplace or in my competition or in my relationship or in my family, meaning I need to stuff those emotions down. I need to deny them. And this practice has really rendered us a very addictive society. I call us a sedation nation. We, instead of being okay with saying, wow, I am vulnerable today, I'm in a lot of pain, we will work our hardest to hide it. We see it as a weakness to be soft. We see it as a weakness to have to be sick. I can tell you how many clients I've talked to where they really won't be feeling well, they really be sick, but they just have pushed themselves to go into work instead of saying, I can take a sick day, or just taking a moment to get themselves back together. Not realizing that if you're not your best and you put yourself into a situation around people, all you're doing is transferring your pain. And then if a situation is already wrought with anxiety and stress and strife, guess what? That's going to increase because you're not healthy. Rather than take the time to get yourself back into balance, get healthy, and then go back into the ring. Um, but you have to admit first, right, that you don't feel good, that it's not 100%, it's not okay. In other words, you have to be vulnerable, and you have to show that vulnerability. You have to share that vulnerability like my grandfather did so that I could drive him safely home back to New York. This is something that's very challenging for us in this culture. What breaks my heart is how challenging it has become for women because women's softness has been seen as if you're too soft, you're going to be hurt, you're going to be taken advantage of, you can't be too innocent, you can't be too compassionate, don't do that, you're going to get your heart broken, it's not good. I don't think that is the truth because I think vulnerability is really about us stepping into our strength. I think it takes a lot of courage to say, this doesn't work for me. I don't like this. This doesn't feel good. Or I really love you. I need you to know that I have feelings for you, strong feelings for you. I really love you. And I'd like to know whether or not you feel that way about me. It takes an enormous amount of courage to put ourselves in that position. So when we can understand and remember that our softness is our strength, and this is for men too. This is definitely for men too. I think then we don't have to deny the pain. We don't have to run from it. We don't have to sedate it. We don't have to shut ourselves down to, um, I don't feel good, because we're human. There are going to be just days that you don't feel good, or it could be a signal that there's something wrong that you need to investigate and take care of so that you can get at it sooner rather than later. But to not want to show your vulnerability, um, it can cause a lot of problems. Now, I'm not talking about making yourself vulnerable to people who will take advantage of you. Okay. That's just plain stupid. I am not talking about that. And in fact, that's part of, what vulnerability can help us with. It can help us learn who can really have my back, who really can be a support to me. Because until you share your vulnerability, sometimes you really aren't going to know that. You're not going to be able to see that. So, um, vulnerability again is messy, and it's that willingness to be messy that will help us transform our pain. If we're trying to hide the messy, then we can't work on it, and also we can't get the help that we need. We can't get the help that we need. Being willing not to know, being willing not to be right, you know, being willing to open up to learning. All of that is vulnerability. And it's just so important if we're going to have the miracles show up in our life. If you're always thinking you've got to be in control and that you've always got to manipulate and you've always got to know, you're not going to get access to the beauty and the majesty and the miraculous support that can come to you from the universe. And so all of that again is about vulnerability, being vulnerable. So I was talking with my family over Valentine's Day. And Valentine's Day, I decided to share Valentine emojis and videos with family and friends to express my love to them. Um, Not expecting anything back. I just needed to express the love because to me, again, Valentine's Day is that it's that day to honor vulnerability and to put ourselves out there, to consciously make ourselves vulnerable. And it was interesting how many of my family members were saying, "Oh, yeah, I don't do that Valentine's Day thing. Oh, I don't like that Valentine's Day thing." And I knew that what they were really talking about is, um, I don't want to just do the candy and the flowers and go to an expensive restaurant because it's not fulfilling, you know? It's just like it's shallow, you know? I think that's basically what they're saying, it was shallow. But what some of them weren't understanding is that that doesn't have to be your Valentine's Day. Your Valentine's Day can be what I just described. And what's interesting to me in what I chose to do, again, these expressions of love and emojis and, just sending it out. I even sent some emojis to some people that I really have some issues with, that in the past it's been a little rocky. But I just said, let me drop that and let me just express love, express love. Um, when I got home that day, because I went out and I did some writing in my cafe, when I got home, there were 2 packages waiting for me, and one of them was from a friend client that sent me Valentine's Day socks and a little card, and, it was just lovely. It was just lovely, so I got my Valentine, and then I also got, a box of some things my sister had been promising to send, and when did it show up? It showed up on Valentine's Day. So, again, when we allow ourselves to just open up and to be vulnerable and to just give, we will receive. It will come to us in miraculous ways. So, again, for next year, think about that. Think about how you can make your Valentine Day a holy day and step into that vulnerability, which is such an important part of truthful transformation. To be in your truth, you're going to have to be vulnerable. Softness is your strength. Well, I've come to the end of this broadcast, and I hope it was supportive and helpful to you. I want to shout out thank you to Thea, my wonderful engineer, who is a senior in high school, and I just found out that she got accepted into Brown University. I'm so happy for her and on a scholarship too, which is really great. So again, Thea, blessings to you. I'm so happy for you, and I hope the ending of your senior year is as joyous and happy and giddy as mine was, or even more so. I want to also shout out to my regular listeners, especially Miss Sarah, my number one fan, who I'm just so grateful for all the love and support that she just effortlessly shares with me and other people in her life. She's an amazing human being. To all those who have wisdom walk with me, and you know who you are, and to you who are my family and my spiritual kin and my transformational leadership colleagues and my medicine brothers and sisters doing wonderful work around the world, and to all those listening in or watching for the first time. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I couldn't do this without your listenership and you liking and tapping that little bell underneath this video. Now, next week, I will complete my month-long spills on truthful transformation with audacity, and I'll relate that to Black History Month by sharing 2 stories of some historical Black figures that people don't usually know about or talk about. And last but not least, and also, again, just a reminder about my Facebook page, Wisdom Walk Radio, and my YouTube channel is called Wisdom Walk to Self Mastery. But now, last but not least, I would like to thank my God, my ancestors, my spirit guides, my loving entities, everything that walks with me, keeps my head to the sky, my feet to the ground, and my heart open to do this work with and for all of you. Please have a fabulous mineral week. Connect to the souls of others, especially the ones that you normally wouldn't think you'd be able to, because that's you connecting to a part of yourself that you didn't think you could connect to. And most importantly, please remember you are not disposable, you are divine. Good night now.